Good day, everybody. This is Ying Yang in California at 5:11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you in Finland, etc. All these places. Oh my gosh, wow. All these places I've never been. Anyway, I'm in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1445. And today we are reading Marcus Aurelius's book, Meditations, and we're in book 8. Actually, it's an anthology technically, I think, because he's got book 8. He's got like 12 books, I think. We've read a lot of them already, but we're in book 8 right now, and we're on number 35. This was translated by Gregory Hayes, Hays. Number 35 in book 8. We have various abilities present in all rational creatures, as in the nature of rationality itself. And this is one of them. Just as nature takes every obstacle, every impediment, and works around it, turns it to its purposes, incorporates it into itself, so too a rational being can turn each setback into raw material and use it to achieve its goal. I wanted to use that expression like 20 years ago. Oh, that's a tight one, I hate that expression. Number 36. But that's what it was. Number 36. Don't let your I really say that because setbacks are such big things to me. But when we have a failure and we turn it into a setback and we turn it into raw material to achieve our goal, we redouble our strength. In a lot of ways, we redouble our strength. Now, you have to remember your goal because, as that famous quote said, fanaticism is the act of redoubling your efforts when you have lost sight of your goal. So keep in mind your goal all the time. Number 36, don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Don't try to picture everything bad that could possibly happen. Stick with the situation at hand and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it? You'll be embarrassed to answer. I had a really silly one yesterday. I said, why didn't I argue with them? Because they were in Fremont. Go. What's that got to do with anything, right? I came up with that after years of pondering over the questions, like, why didn't I argue with them? Because they messed up my, they operated on me and they messed up something a bit. Why didn't I even say something, And now I have a hammer toe because of them. But anyway, why didn't I argue with them? Because they're in Fremont and I love Fremont. I mean, in the long run, it was because I hold them in high esteem, because I'm afraid that I'll lose, because they're so high esteemed. And I'm like, how are they high esteemed? Well, they're in a great neighborhood and their office is beautiful and they're in a big building that's new. And why is the building new? Because it's in Fremont. Can you imagine? So I gotta let him know I don't like my hammer toe. But hey, it's been a long time, so okay, you'll be embarrassed to answer. Then remind yourself that past and future have no power over you, only the present, and even that can be minimized. Just mark off its limits. And if your mind tries to claim that it can't hold out against that, well, then heap shame upon it. In the old days, they used to say shame. Anyway, number 37. Are Panthea or Pergamos still keeping watch at the tomb of Verus? Chabrias or Diotimus at the tomb of Hadrian? Of course they aren't. Would the emperors know it if they were? And even if they knew, would it please them? And even if it did, would the mourners live forever? Were they too not fated to grow old and then die? And when that happened, what would the emperors do? So he's saying that you don't want to waste your time mourning at the sight of an emperor. I wonder what that means. I know what that means. I just wonder a little bit. You know. Number 38. The stench of decay. Rotting meat in a bag. Look at it clearly if you can. Ew. Number 39. Quote, to the best of my judgment, when I look at the human character, I see no virtue placed there to counter justice, but I see one to counter pleasure, self-control. End quote. Number 40, stop perceiving the pain you imagine and you'll remain completely unaffected. You're logos. But I'm not just logos. Fine. Just don't let the logos be injured. If anything else is, let it decide that for itself. It's telling you how to endure pain and to get past pain. Number 41. For animate beings, harmful is whatever obstructs the operation of their senses or the fulfillment of what they intend. Similar obstructions constitute harm to plants. So too for rational creatures. Anything that obstructs the operation of the mind is harmful. Apply this to yourself. Do pain and pleasure have their hooks in you? Let the senses deal with it. Are there obstacles to your actions? If you failed to reckon with the possibility, then that would harm you as a rational being. But if you use common sense, you haven't been harmed or even obstructed. No one can obstruct the operations of the mind. Nothing can get at them, not fire or steel, not tyrants, not abuse, nothing, as long as it's a sphere in perfect stillness. He's talking about an aura here. Number 42. I have no right to do myself an injury. Have I ever injured anyone else if I could avoid it? No. Number 43. People find pleasure in different ways. I find it in keeping my mind clear, in not turning away from people or the things that happen to them, in accepting and welcoming everything I see, in treating each thing as it deserves. Number 44. Give yourself a gift, the present moment. People out for posthumous fame forget that the generations to come will be the same annoying people they know now. And just as mortal, what does it matter to you if they say X about you or think Y? The letter Y. Let me see, hold on a second. Gotta get something off of my lip. Okay. Lift me, number 45. Lift me up and hurl me wherever you will. My spirit will be gracious to me there, gracious and satisfied, as long as its existence and actions match its nature. Is there any reason why my soul should suffer and be degraded, miserable, tense, huddled, frightened? How could there be? How could there be any reason? Number 46. What humans experience is part of human experience. The experience of the ox is part of the experience of oxen, as the vines is of the vine, and the stones what is proper to stones. Nothing that can happen is unusual or unnatural, and there's no sense in complaining. Nature does not make us endure the unendurable. Interesting. In other words, God does not test you beyond your strength. Number 47. External things are not the problem. It's your assessment of them, which you can erase right now. If the problem is something in your own character, who's stopping you from setting your mind straight? And if it's that you're not doing something you think you should be, why not just do it? But there are insuperable obstacles. Then it's not a problem. The cause of your inaction lies outside you. So it's basically saying know your limit and don't waste your time trying to do something that is insuperable. I've never seen that word before, but I know what it means just by its structure. Insuperable. It's like it's got supremacy and you can't go past, over, above it. Okay, the cause of your inaction lies outside you. But how can I go on living with that undone? Then depart with a good conscience as if you'd done it, embracing the obstacles too. Hmm. Number 48. Remember that when it withdraws into itself and finds contentment there, the mind is invulnerable. It does nothing against its will, even if its resistance is irrational, and if its judgment is deliberate and grounded in logic. Hmm. The mind without passions is a fortress. No place is more secure. Once we take refuge there, we are safe forever. Not to see this is ignorance. To see it and not seek safety means misery. So if you see a safe place, go to it. If you see a safe place and you don't go to it, you have misery. Number 49. Nothing but what you get from first impressions. That someone has insulted you, for instance, but not that it's done you any harm. The fact that my son is sick, that I can see, but that he might die of it, no. Stick with first impressions. Don't extrapolate, and nothing can happen to you. Or extrapolate from a knowledge of all that can happen in the world. It's like you can catastrophize if you want, but it's going to be useless. It's got no effect on anything if you catastrophize. That's what he's saying. Number 50. The cucumber is bitter? Then throw it out. There are brambles in the path? Then go around them. That's all you need to know, nothing more. Don't demand to know why such things exist. Anyone who understands the world will laugh at you, just as a carpenter would if you seemed shocked at finding sawdust in his workshop, or a shoemaker at scraps of leather left over from work. Of course, they have a place to dispose of these. Nature has no door to sweep things out of, but the wonderful thing about its workmanship is how, faced with that limitation, it takes everything within it that seems broken, old, and useless, transforms it into itself, and makes new things from it, so that it doesn't need material from any outside source or anywhere to dispose of what's left over. It relies on itself for all it needs: space, material, and labor. I once got a purse my parents bought me from a trip, and it was made of scraps of leather. And it was a beautiful purse to me. I liked it a lot, and I used it for many years. And it was made from scraps of leather, so a shoemaker can make purses if he wants to. And the sawdust, if you're surprised at seeing sawdust in a carpenter's shop, why be surprised? He can use it for other things. They use sawdust to make other plywood, actually. Plywood. I don't know if they call it plywood, but they call it like compressed wood. So it's like garlic. Like when they make granulated garlic, they come up with garlic powder. So if you use granulated garlic, it's one thing, but if you use garlic powder, you've got it in the air and it goes up your nose. Number 51. No carelessness in your actions, no confusion in your words, no impression in your thoughts, no retreating into your own soul or trying to escape it, no overactivity. They kill you, cut you with knives, shower you with curses, and that somehow cuts your mind off from clearness and sanity and self control and justice. A man standing by a spring of clear, sweet water and cursing it while the fresh water keeps on bubbling up. He can shovel mud into it or dung, and the stream will carry it away, wash itself clean, remain unstained. To have that, not a cistern, but a perpetual spring. How? By working to win your freedom, hour by hour, through patience, honesty, humility. Number 52. Not to know what the world is to be ignorant of where you are. Not to know why it's here is to be ignorant of who you are and what it is. Not to know any of this is to be ignorant of why you're here. And what are we to make of anyone who cares about the applause of such people who don't know where or who they are? So don't go and become starstruck in Hollywood. We don't care. Well, yeah. Number 53. You want praise from people who kick themselves every 15 minutes? The approval of people who despise themselves? Is it a sign of self-regret? I mean, is it a sign of self-respect to regret nearly everything you do? Wow. There was I'm thinking of an example that somebody had where it was a true story, somewhere in the heartland of the United States. There was a huge flood, and there was a helicopter, and there were two boys, and there were rescuers, and the elder brother said, "Take him first." So they took the younger one first, and the elder boy was about 12 years old and was swept away. That was an act of heroism. He wanted to make sure that his brother, whom he had taken care of for the brother's long little life, was taken care of first. He didn't want to waste his work in that sense and his love. So he went first. I mean, he departed first. Number 54. To join ourselves not just to the air surrounding us through breath, but to the reason that embraces all things through thought. Reason is just as omnipresent, just as widely diffused in those who accept it as air is in those who breathe. Number 55. The existence of evil does not harm the world, and an individual act of evil does not harm the victim. Only one person is harmed by it, and he can stop being harmed as soon as he decides to. In other words, the harmer, right? Oh, I got a little visitor here. She won't come up. Okay. Number 56. Other people's wills are as independent of mine as their breath and bodies. We may exist. Good morning, Gina Potoff. I want to test something here. If I press this button, will it work? Yes, it does. It does. I finally put the lamp a little farther away so the electromagnetic field doesn't interfere with that function. Number 56. Other people's wills are as independent of mine as their breath and bodies. We may exist for the sake of one another, but our will rules its own domain. Otherwise, the harm they do would cause harm to me, which is not what God intended, for my happiness to rest with someone else. Number 57. We speak of the sun's light as pouring down on us, as pouring over us in all directions, yet it's never poured out because it doesn't really pour. It extends. Its beams, Aktai, A-K-T-A-I, its beams get their name from their extension, ektenestai. Oh shit. Ektenestai. Ektenestai. Ekteinestai. Ekteinestai. Greek. To see the nature of a sunbeam, look at light as it falls through a narrow opening into a dark room. It extends in a straight line, striking any solid object that stands in its way and blocks the space beyond it. There it remains, not vanishing or falling away. That's what the outpouring, the diffusion of thought should be like. Not emptied out, but extended, and not striking at obstacles with fury and violence or falling away before them, but holding its ground and illuminating what receives it. What doesn't transmit light creates its own darkness. Interesting. So you control only what you can control. You stop at the place where you can't control it. Okay, number 58. Fear of death is fear of what we may experience, nothing at all, or something quite new. But if we experience nothing, we can experience nothing bad. And if our experience changes, then our existence will change with it. Change, but not cease. Number 59. People exist for one another. You can instruct or endure them. Golly. You can instruct or endure them. One time at the COVID pandemic time, we had elevators in our apartment, and we had to, um, at some point, there was social distancing, so it was allowed to have up to two people in the elevator at a time. We got to the sixth floor, and a gentleman was standing at the elevator, and I was standing at the door, and there was a gentleman behind me standing in the back of the elevator. So we were taking up the whole elevator, and he said, "Can you please move to make room for me to stand on the elevator?" And I said, "We can't. It's the social distancing rule, two people only." And so the elevator went on. And then the man in the back said, "He's young." So you can instruct or endure them. We instructed that particular one. Number 60. An arrow has one motion and the mind another. Even when pausing, even when weighing conclusions, the mind is moving forward toward its goal. An arrow has one motion and the mind another. Even when pausing, even when weighing conclusions, the mind is moving forward toward its goal. Number 61. To enter others' minds and let them enter yours. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So this was book 8. We've come to the end of book 8. Next week, we shall read a little bit of the introduction that we never came to before, because I think we're ready for it. The introduction was, I think, 37 pages long, and we've read about 25 pages of it. So I figured I'd get into the content before finishing the introduction, because of our audience being me included. I was impatient to get to the introduction. So here we are. I mean, to the content. So anyway, happy birthday to those who have birthdays, and thank you for coming, and hello to everybody who comes: Mandy, Alexi, John Clark, and Liz Rose Cantara, and AC Rosita, and Susan Campbell, and who else? Oh gosh, lots of people. So okay, I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a rules day. Okay, old Kinderich.